All right, so I got straight A pluses for 3.5 years now in my studies in engineering. And in this video, I want to share with you some advice so that you can learn to do better in your studies and also enjoy the process a whole lot more. Okay, so I know a lot of students are feeling scattered, especially when it comes up to exam times. You feel like all you do is work, and yet simultaneously you are far behind in all of your classes. And I know that feeling, and I've been there. And so over the past few years, I've been, learning and trying different things and trying to figure out, just what I could do in order to fix this so I didn't feel so scattered and behind all the time. And so in this video, I want to share with you one of the most important things, one of the most important lessons that I've learned that has allowed me to do as well as I do in my studies while still having, the time to spend with friends, while still having the time to exercise, while still having the time to just enjoy the whole experience, right? And so that lesson is, that idea is that you need to start looking at implementing better habits instead of looking for hacks. So when it comes to school, a lot of people are always searching for, hacks and tips and tricks that are supposedly going to fix all of their problems. It's going to, help them study 2, 3, 4 times better. It's going to help them free up, a bunch of free time that they can suddenly use on whatever else they want to spend it on, right? But here's the thing, these tips, these productivity hacks, these things are not actually what's going to help you in the long run, okay? Some of them are good, and some of them can, be the little cherry on top that help you study a little bit better, or focus a little bit better, but they're not actually addressing the root cause of why school leaves you feeling so scattered. What most people don't realize is that a lot of your school-related problems don't come from, a lack of time or a lack of this or lack of that, right? Most of these problems actually come from a bad mental, right? And if you improve your mental, you can address those problems at its root cause, right? You don't have to work on having some productivity hack, right? Because you'll just inherently be more productive, okay? You don't need to worry about having energy to study because you'll just inherently have more energy if you address the root cause instead of trying to look for these band-aid solutions. When it comes to your school-related problems, there's no time management hack or productivity hack that's going to magically solve all your problems. You can't just take this, let's say you watch this video online, oh, this 5-minute time management system is going to solve all your problems, okay? It won't, okay? There's a reason it doesn't, because if it did, then everybody would have their time management problems figured out. If the 5-minute video that you watched online about productivity was actually as effective as it said, then everybody who watched it would have no more issues with productivity. But that's not the case, right? Because it's these things, these tips, these tricks, these hacks, okay? They aren't addressing the root cause. They're just providing a band-aid solution. They're just, providing a temporary fix to the problem, okay? And so if you want to fix whatever problem you have, okay, your procrastination problem, your energy problem, your motivation problem, okay, stop looking for these temporary band-aid solutions and instead go to the root cause, okay? How do we do that if the root cause is a bad mental? Well, we need to implement good habits in order to improve our mental, and then everything else will just fall into place. So with that, okay, with that idea that we need to, actually fix the problem instead of trying to place a band-aid over it, I want to address two of the major problems that students have. And those problems are first energy and also motivation, okay? And first we're going to talk about energy. So having the energy to work is probably a big struggle that you've experienced as a student. You probably had times where you sit down and you just cannot do the work in front of you. You had the plan, you planned it out, you did, everything else right, okay? You said, I'm going to come home, I'm going to do this work at this time. And then you actually get home and you sit down and you try to do this work and you just don't have the energy to do it, no matter what you try, okay? And so that is inherently an energy problem, okay? And so you could sit there, you could try to push through the work, it's not going to be good work because you actually just don't have the energy to do it. Or what you might do is, try to figure out some trick or hack that's going to, give you your energy to sit down and get this work done or to hammer out this work, okay? Or we can think back and we can think, hey, what is the actual root cause of this, okay? And so with energy, the biggest thing we can do to, have enough energy to do the work is to just start the day with more energy. How do you do that? Is just by sleeping, okay? Sleep, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is so important. The difference between a 5-hour sleep and a 8-hour sleep, once you've actually caught up, is huge. And until you've actually had a consistent period of time where you've slept the hours you should be sleeping, the healthy amount you should be sleeping, this is something you might not even be able to understand. I was talking to my buddy at the gym the other day, and he was saying the same thing. He was saying, his sleep used to be terrible, and then he was getting it back on track over the period of time, okay? And then just last week or something, he had only 2 hours of sleep for whatever reason. He had a test coming up or whatever it was, okay? And he said, after having experienced what good sleep is like, actually going back to the bad sleep, the difference is just is just crazy, okay? It's not something that you can understand. It's not something that you really feel until you've actually experienced what having a healthy sleep schedule is like. The same thing is true for me, right? Like back in high school, I had terrible sleep. I would stay up till 2 a.m. playing video games, and I would wake up late. I would kind of sleep in, and then I would go to class, and I'd be wondering why at the end of the day, I just didn't have, the energy, okay? And of course, I carried these habits into early university, and that's where you actually start to realize that these things are issues, okay? And then I started to improve my sleep more and more and more, okay? And then eventually I'm sleeping, the right amount. And so because this change was something that happened over a period of time, it actually wasn't something that was too noticeable to me, right? Like, of course, you notice that you have a little bit more energy here or there, but you don't understand just how big that gap is between where you were and where you are now, right? And so then it wasn't until I actually experienced another period of time, a week here or there, where I had poor sleep, that you realize just how bad it is to not be getting your sleep, just how much of a lower state of energy, how sluggish you feel when you're not getting your sleep, how much worse the work is when you're not getting your sleep, how much worse a workout is when you're not getting the sleep, okay? This plays a huge difference in not just your energy levels, but also, your decision making, how sharp you are during the day, your mood even, okay? And so with all of these things, all right, trust me when I say that it's worth it to just place the emphasis on your sleep, okay? Oftentimes, as a student, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna stay up for this extra hour to get this little last bit of studying in. And then you do it, and you wake up the next day, and because you're an hour and a half short on sleep, okay, you're probably, 25% slower during this day, a little bit more sluggish, not quite as smart. Your brain's not quite as quick, okay? Everything's just a little bit slower. And then maybe you go and take your exam, and because of that, you just do that much worse because of that, okay? Oftentimes, okay, the trade-off between that one more hour of studying and that one more hour of sleep, unless you're on like 0 hours of studying so far, it's not worth it, okay? The benefits you get by, staying up 2 hours past your bedtime and getting, a 6th and 7th hour of studying done during the day are completely outweighed by the negatives that you get from missing those hours of sleep, okay? So sleep clearly is important for energy. If you want the energy to be able to sit down and just do the work, all right, without having this grogginess, this sluggishness pulling you back, okay? Then you got to be focusing on your sleep, all right? Because when you sleep well, you're going to be starting the day with more energy. You're going to have more energy throughout the day. And there we go, right? That's the problem solved, right? We've solved it at its root cause instead of trying to figure out some trick or some hack to give you the energy to study or to just push through it anyways, okay? So that's a big thing for energy is sleep. And one other very important thing for energy is rest, actually, and breaks, okay? I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and her exam was coming up, and she was saying, she was going to study for 12 hours this day, okay? Yes, you can study for 12 hours in a day. You totally can, okay? But what's going to happen is that as the day goes on, those hours are going to become more and more and more and more ineffective to the point where, that 12 hours of studying probably could have been done in 4 to 6 hours if it was spread out properly throughout the day, and if you had breaks between that re-energized you so you can come back at the work with that energy, right? You need to be splitting up your studying with breaks, okay? So you can come back recharged to get more quality studying in, all right? It's like at the gym, okay? Most people at the gym, they do 3 sets of that exercise, okay? So, they do their first set, they're repping out the weight, all right? And so after that first set, what do? Okay? Do they immediately pick back up the weight and start repping out that weight again in set 2, okay? No, they don't do that, okay? They take a break between your sets, okay? So you can, rest up so you can recharge so that the next set is more quality. It has more quality volume, okay? Instead of just wasting it on junk volume. The same thing applies to your studying, okay? If you try to just study hour after hour after hour consecutively, okay, without taking breaks, that studying is just junk volume. It's like junk volume in the gym, okay? It was not nearly as effective as it could have been if you split it up into proper, chunks of volume, okay? So when you're studying, okay, give yourself that rest. Give yourself, the permission to take these breaks, knowing that not only are you going to just feel good because, it's good to have these breaks, but also knowing that by taking these breaks, you're going to be doing better. You're going to be getting more volume of work done, more quality work done during the day, right? You're going to be working less, but accomplishing more. So it's just a win-win. Now, the one thing you need to be aware of is that, you need to be taking proper breaks, all right? When you're studying, okay, you're studying intensely, right? So your focus is being used, your brain is being used, right? So how do you take this break, okay? Well, the key is that to understand that your focus is being used, like I just said, and your brain is being used, okay? And so in order to take an effective break, you need to give your focus and give your brain a rest. So what does that not look like? That doesn't look like picking up your phone and going on social media, right? Because that is taking your focus. By going on social media, okay, or by consuming short form content, that is not a break, okay? You are, still using your brain to focus. You're still using your brain. You're not giving it that break that it needs, okay? The other negative, which is even bigger, is that you're going to be stimulating your brain, which makes you not want to come back to your studying anymore, okay? Which, of course, that goes against the whole point of the break, right? We wanted to take the break so you could come back recharged and get another hour or two of studying then, right? But if you didn't give yourself that break, if you just went and, used your focus even more, used your brain even more, it doesn't work as a break. It's not an effective break. You didn't actually accomplish any, rest or recharging during that period of time. So proper rest is what you need. And that could be as simple as just, stepping outside, okay? Going for a walk, all right? This is not a stimulating activity, but it's something that is going to recharge your brain. You're giving your brain that break. You're not focusing on anything specifically. You're not thinking about anything specifically. Maybe your mind will wander, but that's okay, okay? Boredom is fine. The idea is that you're not, using your brain. You're not stimulating your brain. You're not intensely focusing on anything. You're recharging your brain. You're resting so you can come back. That is proper rest. And so those two things, sleep and resting, taking breaks, are going to be two things that you can implement that are going to, really help you with this lack of energy problem, okay? So much more than any little hack or trick that's supposed to, fix this problem for you, okay? So that's energy. And next we said we're going to talk about motivation. We're going to address motivation. So lacking motivation is obviously something that a lot of students come across of, whether it's because, the workload is just heavy or, they're not entirely in love with the subject that they're learning, whatever it is, okay? There's always going to be some time where you're not having the motivation to study, okay? And that's expected, right? Nobody has 100% motivation. I don't have 100% motivation, okay? A lot of times you need to rely on other things like discipline or systems or other stuff like that, okay? But having motivation is great. And it's really nice to have for, 70% of the time, 60% of the time, okay? If you could be motivated for that much, it's so nice to want to sit down and do your studying, to want to, get up and go to the gym, to want to do these hard things. When you're feeling motivated for something, the whole process just becomes a whole lot more enjoyable. And that enjoyment will then make the whole process more sustainable, which will then help you do better in the long run, right? So if we improve motivation, we're not only going to improve our enjoyment of our studies, we're going to improve our performance as a whole, okay? Our performance in whatever it is that we're caring about, which is why it's really important to get to the root cause of why you don't have the motivation to begin with. Why isn't it there? Recently, what I found for myself to be one of the biggest, causes of a lack of motivation was overconsumption of short-form content. Recently, I made a video about short-form content and social media and how much it was affecting me in my studies. And so since then, it's just become more and more apparent to me just how much short-form content negatively affects motivation. A few months ago, I was using Instagram a lot more than I used to be. And I also was noticing that I didn't have the motivation to go to the gym as much. I didn't have the motivation to do my studies as much, to work as much, okay? And so eventually, I was picking up on this and I decided to cut it out. And so I said I was only going to go on Instagram one time a week, okay? And so it's been, a couple months since then. And the difference in motivation that I've noticed in myself just by cutting out the couple of times a day of social media has been huge. It's been one of the most effective single little things that I've done that has just skyrocketed my motivation. All of a sudden, since severely reducing the amount of short form content I consume, all of a sudden work seemed fun again. All of a sudden, my lifts are going up in the gym. I'm enjoying the gym more. I'm having more time to read. I'm getting to bed earlier. And all of this from just, cutting out seemingly a short period of time, 10, 20 minutes in a day. And so it's because that 10 to 20 minutes isn't just the 10 to 20 minutes, okay? It spans a much larger, scope in terms of the effects that it has on your brain, okay? I've talked about this a whole lot, in another video, but basically, this constant stimulation that you get from even just going on 10, 20 minutes a day, okay? Having that in your day, okay, makes good habits feel so much more boring, okay? Why would I feel motivated to sit down and do schoolwork if I can just go on, my phone instead and get like instant dopamine, okay? Why would I feel motivated to go for a walk outside or to go pick up a book when I can open Instagram and all of a sudden, boom, I'm hit with like 10 times the amount of dopamine. Even just that small amount of time, that 10, 20 minutes a day, okay? It carries through the rest of the day. It carries through the rest of the week. It carries through the month. And all of a sudden, you're just not motivated anymore, okay? And so if you want to improve your motivation, we got to figure out, okay, why aren't you motivated? It's because you have constant stimulation from, bad habits, social media, that's preventing you from, enjoying good habits at all, okay? And so, if you don't enjoy the habits, they're too boring. Of course, you're never going to be motivated to do the thing if you just don't like that thing, okay? And so if we want to address motivation, if we want to figure out, hey, how can I be more motivated? How do I, improve my motivation in this thing, in the gym, in school, in life, okay? You got to figure out, hey, what is the thing that I'm doing that is preventing me from being motivated in this thing that I want to, do good in, okay? Is it social media? Is it maybe video games? Is it maybe, TV? Is it something else, okay? What is, there's probably a high stimulating activity behind it that is preventing you from being motivated to do the things that you actually want to do in your life, okay? Now I understand that cutting these things out can be difficult, they can be uncomfortable, okay? But so is the discomfort of not doing well in the things that you want to do in. Let's say you are stressed about school, okay? You're not doing too well in school. You want to do better. You're just not feeling good about this whole thing because you're not doing well. You're not enjoying it, okay? It doesn't feel good, okay? Let's say someone comes up to you with advice and they say, hey, what you got to do is you just got to go to bed 30 minutes earlier each day. You might say, hey, that's going to be kind of annoying. I don't really want to go to bed 30 minutes earlier each day. There's going to be some discomfort there, right? I have certain things that I want to do during this time. I want to watch TV. I want to do this, okay? Yes, there's going to be discomfort there when you're implementing a new habit, when you're trying to fix something, right? Because there's trade-offs with everything. But you forget that there was also a lot of discomfort to begin with. You had a lot of discomfort because you weren't feeling good about your studies. You were stressed about it, okay? You weren't doing well. You didn't enjoy it, okay? You had all these negative emotions towards it. And so, yes, the solution has, a little bit of discomfort as well, but you need to weigh the trade-offs, right? Is going to bed 30 minutes earlier worth all the positive trade-offs that might come? And I'm not saying that going to bed 30 minutes earlier is going to solve all of your problems, but I'm just going to say that when you implement things, when you say, hey, like, okay, I'm going to go on social media less, I'm going to do this less, I'm going to start going to bed earlier, okay? All of these good habits that you're going to implement, there will be discomfort there, especially at the start, okay? But there is a bigger discomfort there to begin with. There is the discomfort of, not moving closer towards your goals. There is the discomfort of, not feeling like you're like living up to what you could do, okay? There's the discomfort of, not doing well in your classes, of not enjoying studying at all, of not enjoying university as a whole, okay? You have all of these discomforts, okay? And so yes, when you're trying to implement good habits, there's discomfort there as well, but you just got to pick which discomfort you want, okay? You can say that you don't want to go on social media less. You don't want to go to sleep early, okay? That's okay. That's the life that you want. But then you need to be okay with accepting the other discomfort, okay? You have to pick which one you want. And so for me personally, right, it's obvious, okay? I'll take the little bit of discomfort that comes from implementing the good habits because I know, A, they're good for me. I also know that by choosing the good habits, yes, they are, uncomfortable to begin with, but over time, that discomfort fades, okay? And so you choose, a short scale, temporary discomfort in order to improve your overall quality of life and remove a much greater discomfort, okay? So choose your discomfort. That's all. Thank you for watching.